Just one big joke. It's a fucked up world. Here we are in. I ain't going nowhere.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Reason Reborn. This is episode 47, the episodiest episode ever. I'm here with my co-host, Cardiac Sumo. What's going on, Miles Morales?
The episodiest?
I have to say something that doesn't make sense because it's already an episode, just like the wettest hurricane is already wet, so I don't know how you make it wetter, but we'll figure it out later.
Okay. What's going on, people? It's a fabulous Thursday, I guess. A little off schedule. But
Yeah,
that's what happens when you have freedom. You can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, and plus, although I feel like it's not because of freedom, it's because school. It's my fault, by the way, guys. The last couple of episodes have been late because school is dumb. Education's good, school is dumb. Yes, I said it. Okay. I said it.
It's like saying
learn
food is
yourself
good,
somehow
but
way if you can, please, for the love of God. School.
It's like saying food is good, but cooking is dumb. Like,
I mean, it has a point. You know, shit. Do you like to cook?
yes.
So, like, sometimes you don't just want to be cooked for.
Well, sure, but you know, nobody loves me, so here I am, cooking for myself.
That is sad. We need to find Cardi. Ladies, this man is single. He's in Florida.
Nobody's coming to Florida.
Yeah.
This is where most of the hurricanes
Oh,
come.
please, people love Florida. You know how many women come to Florida to like wild out? Come on.
Yeah, it's a vacation spot. It's not a spot where you like live, unless you know you're like a cokehead who wrestles alligators for fun. I don't know.
I mean, you can find somebody. I mean, if anything, by the time you hit your retirement age, you'll find plenty of people who date. So, somebody will be there for you. Somebody will show up. We're gonna work on this. Definitely gonna, yeah. That's our plan. In fact, I should make this a Patreon goal. Like, if
Oh my god! How about we work on, you know, the country surviving the next couple of years?
Well, if I honestly, the way things are going, we better get you a girl first because you may not have a place for you and her to chill at in another year or two. The way this world is going, you know, find out as you can before like the bigliest president ever, the bigly, destroys it all. Speaking of bigly, but not bigly, so the president has had quite an interesting week personally. Starting off with the wettest hurricane ever summation of the past Hurricane Florence that hit the North Carolina mid-Atlantic coast. Then, of course, he went on to harp about how people didn't seem to appreciate the great job he did for Hurricane Maria last year, in which over 3,000 people died, in which he said they didn't die. And
I
then
forgot about that.
yeah, he said no 3,000 people died. What are you talking about? Those body bags were just empty. And then he finished off his personal week with an article coming out that was printed in all places first. Kotaku, which, if you don't know what Kotaku is, it is a video game and gaming media site that focuses on gaming. Why would Kotaku print a story about Trump? Because tidbits from Stormy Daniels' upcoming novel were leaked. And one of the interesting tidbits was that she referred to the president's penis as looking like a character from Mario Kart. For those who don't know Mario Kart, it's based off the Super Mario Brothers games, and the particular character that she was speaking of is named Toad, who's a little tiny mushroom, which, to the shock and horror of many gamers, is now going to be embedded in their memories as Donald Trump's dick. Never see him.
Code just made a heel turn for every Nintendo fan out there.
Yeah, no, like when I first saw that, I was like, gee, that's the way to ruin a fucking video game for people out there. Jeez.
I mean, to be fair, don't most people's penises look like mushrooms on some level?
Okay. Fair enough. But you know what? You could say it looks like a tiny mushroom. You don't have to kill the joy of gamers out there. You know what I mean?
Maybe she was just trying to show that she's hip, you know? She knows the video games.
I don't need her to be hip. You're a porn star. How many video games are you playing?
Call of Booty 5.
Right. You know, like you use a like fucking PlayStation Move wand for other things, not games.
All right.
I'm just saying it resembles, you know.
You don't know that. She could be the biggest gamer on the planet. You don't know that woman's private life.
Taking back shots while playing Battlefield 5. Yeah. Actually wouldn't be a bad fantasy, by the way.
I mean,
just on a side note.
She's retired, man.
Women who would be willing to like play you in the game while you have sex. That would be interesting.
She's a retired lady. I'm sure she has to, you know, fill her free time with something.
I mean, she clearly was filling it with him.
Gross.
But then again, I guess not if it looks like Toad. Jeez.
More gross? All right. Yeah, so.
Look, this is an important news story that reflects reflects the nation right now. You discuss this. My worst takeaway from him though was the damn hurricanes. Like the Toad thing was the horror, but the other stuff was like clearly the nightmare.
Yeah, I keep getting these Twitter notifications. Because I commented on something Katina had posted. I don't know if you saw it.
I didn't see it, but I spoke to her this morning. Mauro Ranallo.
Yeah. Commented on that, and he responded, so I was just like, he keeps getting likes and all that shit. Because Mauro, this dude, like, shout out to him, because he responds to, like, a lot of stuff. I feel like I've, you know, mentioned him once, and he responded to it. Like, this dude is just, like, out there doing that shit.
No, he's a very personable person. He likes to engage with people and talk about, like, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Mauro Ranallo is a sports announcer, mainly known for his announcements right now with WWE on NXT and their pay-per-views. And he's bipolar, and he is an like serious advocate for it. So much so that Showtime, who he also works for with doing boxing and MMA, produced a documentary on him and his bipolar disease, and his life and all that. And Katina, co-host of His Point, Her View podcast, watched the documentary, and she was talking to me about it. She was like, it's really, really good. It's really, really, you know, it's something that a lot of people, especially if you're suffering with mental diseases, need to watch, because it can definitely help you understand and relate. Well, if for someone who has a disease, she was like, it makes you like feel like there's someone out there that actually really understands what you're going through. And then if you don't know something, she recommends it for you, because if you know someone who may be suffering from stuff like bipolar disease, it can help teach you how, you know, what a day in a life is for them, and maybe give you some understanding on how to relate to them and treat them.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously following Mauro Ranallo, I've heard of this documentary for a while now. And excuse me. I gotta say, I've been hearing very good things about it for a long time now. It's on the back burner for me. So I have intended to check it out, but every time I hear somebody mention it, it's always praise. It seems like one of those things that are going to be like emotional, which makes it kind of hard for me to want to watch. It's like, this is serious. What? But definitely on my to-do list to watch. I don't know if you watched it yet, but
no, I haven't, because I actually didn't know he had done it. That's
really?
the thing. Yeah, no.
I thought we talked about it. Maybe not. I follow
You
him.
probably have mentioned it, but it may have just slipped my mind.
I've seen him go on a couple podcasts to talk about it. Like, I think he was on Sam Roberts.
Right.
I can't remember if he was with Edge and Christian. I don't know. I've seen him around.
Yeah, like I saw he was on Jim Cornette. I've heard him on Jim Cornette's podcast talk about it as well. No, it's like everywhere he goes, he's very open and honest about it.
Yeah, it's good shit. But I did not mean to take us off track. I just happened to notice that I'm still noticing these.
Yeah.
The guy.
He's a very likable, lovable dude, and he's an amazing announcer, and he deserves all the praise he gets. Definitely.
Sure. But what were we talking about before? I mean, we were probably talking about Trump, but what specifically?
We were just kind of winding down on the whole like stuff, like his hurricane response was what I was thinking of.
Tremendously big and tremendously wet.
Like, Jesus.
He is
The funny thing is, he talks like a 4-year-old, but sometimes some of the things he say just comes out as the most awkward adult shit. Like, what are we talking about here, sir? Like, for you to be saying this.
You know what? I'm starting to resent this idea that he speaks like a child, because children don't really speak like that. I feel like we're saying that because we're noticing that he has a limited vocabulary selection. But I would argue that children put their sentences together better than he does and more creatively.
I feel like I can hold a better conversation with a 4-year-old. In fact, I am pretty sure I've had better conversations before about things.
I forgot it. Their vocabularies might be about the same, which I'm doubting that too, but let's just say that they know about the same amount of words, right? I would argue that children talk about a wider variety of things in a wider variety of ways, where he's pretty much always talking about himself, or, praising himself or something along those lines. Like, the types of things he was willing to talk about is very limited, and the adjectives he uses to describe them are even more limited. There's only like 3 or 4 words or phrases that he uses. Tremendous. He uses tremendous a lot. Like you've never seen before. People are saying, stuff like that. Like those Trump-isms that he has. It's only like a handful that I can really think of, and he uses them in every single conversation.
Yeah, like, I know we say this a lot. I say it a lot in jest, and it's kind of in jest, kind of in truth this time. But shout out to George Bush Jr. because, God damn it, as much as we talked about how dumb he is, he tried to use like other words. You know what I mean? He tried to expand this as a vocabulary. It didn't work all the time, being the decider and stuff like that. Trying to do old, like, folk sayings, the whole, like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me can't fool me again. Like, he at least was trying. I feel like Trump doesn't even try because he can't.
I don't think Trump even realizes that he ought to try. It feels like he's very oblivious to. How should I put this? I think he's aware that a lot of people think he's dumb and it bothers him. But I don't think he's aware of why they think he's dumb or what he could do to change that outlook on him.
That's a good assessment.
It's really odd.
It's like he fights so hard to prove people that he knows stuff, but he doesn't show any he doesn't show like any expansion to like his actual knowledge. It's like, again, Bush tried. He just says the same things and thinks, see, this shows how I'm smart. It's like, no, you don't say anything, but you regurgitate simple like phrases.
But on the hurricanes, what specifically were you referring to? Because there seems to be several things you could mention in regards to hurricanes that he kind of pooped on over the last week.
The wettest thing was hilarious. That's just like, oh, Trump, you're just a dumbass. But the things that bother me the most, like, and it's weird that the deaths didn't bother me the most, because I feel, him lying about something kind of was like, it's just, sadly, it's what you expect. You don't expect him to be truthful or acknowledge anything or take any responsibility. It's sad. It's a horrible feeling to say that you just well, what did we expect, and move on? We shouldn't be in this state. But anyway, that didn't bother me more than the whole thing where he said, when he was saying how, how great of a job he did, even though people didn't appreciate it. And it's like, wait a minute, you're seriously trying to pine for some type of sympathy because you want people to praise you for what? You did nothing. You didn't do anything demonstrative. You ignored the country. You didn't even know the country was in the United States territory. You were complaining about having to help foreigners when you're talking about American citizens. So for you to sit up there and try to say, well, they just didn't appreciate me. It's just fucking that shit. Just I was so mad when I first heard that. It was just like, yo, that's disrespectful as shit.
Sure. So for some context for those people who may not have been watching the news as much, trying to escape the regime's rhetoric, it seems like a series of self-inflicted wounds here by our illustrious president. So I believe the press was asking him, essentially how he's going to handle Hurricane Florence coming over to North Carolina, South Carolina, Carolinas. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I guess the discussion of Hurricane Maria that hit Puerto Rico last year came up. And, they were talking about that, and he started sort of bragging about how well they did, saying things like it was the best handled hurricane ever, blah, 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 regular Trump bragging, which obviously wasn't true. There was a ton of lives lost in that hurricane, but this is how Trump's mind works. He just brags. It doesn't really matter if it's true or not. So, of course, he was going to do that. Now, the press picked up on his inaccurate bragging and started, lambasting him for it, which he deserved because, again, that hurricane did not go well. It was disastrous in many ways for Puerto Rico. So Trump picks up on this negative press that he's getting, and as Black was alluding to, he gets very upset that he's not getting credit for I don't quite know what he was expecting to get credit for. I'm sure there are plenty of brave men and women who went there and helped out, and they should be applauded. But as I recall, he didn't seem to be taking that disaster very seriously. There's those infamous images of him going down there, doing the basketball shot with the paper towels to people, he's coming in and just playing a game. He doesn't seem to take anything very seriously, even a dire situation like that. So, you fast forward, he's getting this negative attention from the press about his stupid bragging. He fires back at them saying, we did a great job, which again, everybody knows isn't true. And I think that's probably what made him pick up on this 3,000 number. So studies have been done since Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, and the resulting deaths from the hurricane, not just deaths, that were directly attributed to the hurricane, but also indirectly caused deaths by the hurricane. They total up to 2,700 or something like that. I don't remember the exact number, but we've been rounding up to 3,000 in the press, right?
Mm-hmm.
And This guy with balls as big as the moon, right, says that 3,000 people didn't die, that this is just a hoax by the Democrats to make him look bad. Where did all these sudden deaths just come from like magic? He's spreading this conspiracy theory essentially that this study that was done, as people have been mentioning by, what's the name of that university? I can't remember what organization did this study now. But, it wasn't a partisan study. It was just some group doing this study. He's been spreading this conspiracy theory that the Democrats inflated this number like 50 times over to make him look bad. So suddenly he made the deaths of thousands of Puerto Rican citizens about his image, which of course just made his situation that much worse. I think that should catch people up essentially on the timeline of this series of idiotic missteps. I don't know what else to call it. Like, none of this was necessary. He didn't need to start bragging, which caught the media's attention. He didn't need to lie about this study. Like, unforced errors. Like, there's no reason for him to keep stepping into these stupid arguments.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pause there. It's just so mind-boggling to watch this guy's mind at work.
well, part of the pause was because somebody I know tried to retweet a Candace Owens tweet, and it was hilarious. And I'm just looking like, y'all really think this? It was like, we can't ignore the racism of this administration. Her trying to be sarcastic as she shows Trump kissing a black baby. It's like, so he paid someone to let them kiss their baby. That
gross.
It's like, okay, am I like, so that makes him not racist? All right, like, Trump supporters are the dumbest people in the world. I swear. They are, because it's like, you try so hard. Like, I'm sure I could make a better case for why you should appreciate Trump than someone else. Than someone who actually cares about the motherfucker. Because I use logic and I use my brain. Y'all don't. Y'all just be reaching for straws. That's why nobody cares.
I mean, sure, it's a game of mental gymnastics with them, but mental gymnastics is something you have to do when you're trying to support an idea that doesn't make sense, right? So if it made sense, you could just use straightforward arguments. It wouldn't matter. It's when you're trying to justify the irrational that you're going to have a hard time. So,
yeah. Which I guess is a good segue into the next subject. Brett Kavanaugh's hearing is in upheaval because, and I forget her first name. Was it Christina Ford?
I've been thinking it's Christina Blasey Ford, but I can't remember if it's Christina.
I can't remember the middle name, but
it's Blasey.
So an accuser came out against Brett Kavanaugh, claiming that back in high school he sexually assaulted her during a party. This has caused a lot of chaos, as now there's concern for the Republicans that they may not be able to get the vote off for his confirmation. The Democrats, of course, want this to be investigated and to find out what's going on. And there's been a demand for a hearing, which, of course, the victim, Ms. Ford, is kind of skittish about because, one, she didn't really want to go public anyway. This is where I can definitely ding the Democrats, is that while I understand what who was it who helped her? Was it McCaskill?
Wasn't it Feinstein?
Feinstein.
Yeah.
Senator Feinstein, who brought her to the FBI to disclose this information, and then it quote unquote leaked out into the public. This is where I can kind of knock the Democrats. Is like, they knew it was going to get out. They didn't really care about her privacy, and this is a weapon which, okay, I can understand, because you don't want this crazy dude on the bench. But now this lady's life is just going to be a total wreck. because of this. Because now the Republicans are demanding they demanded that she actually came and did a hearing this past Monday, or else they were going to do a vote. Kind of backed off on that when people realized that when they realized people weren't too happy with them. So he kind of Lindsey Graham kind of backed off, and then they came up with the whole, well, if she does it by Friday, cool, but if she don't, we have to do a vote because they're worried. Midterms are coming up, recess is coming up. I believe if they don't get this in by a certain time, I forget the exact date, but if they don't get it in by a certain time, which is part of the reason why they rushed and ramped up the whole hearing anyway, and kind of try to blast through it as fast as possible, is that if they do not get it done before the official recall to session by the Supreme Court, there's only going to be an 8-man Supreme Court until sometime next year, which derail any ideas or plans they have to put to vote anything that they want to get rid of. More importantly, it leaves you with a deadlock Supreme Court in most cases. And it doesn't tip the balance in their favor like they want it to. Even worse, it makes Kavanaugh an even less presentable nominee, of course, because between that time, who knows what else they'll dig up on this man's past. I mean, look at how this came out of left field. Which is, again, I denounce the Democrats for this, but at the same time, I kind of get the strategy because this can be that thing that could break his nomination, like, into pieces. What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I have a lot of resentment toward that entire situation. I guess speaking on resentment, just really quick, because I didn't talk too much about it, because I gave the background info on that hurricane thing, but I do want to say I think it's pretty disgusting the president making that thing those deaths all about himself. I think we get so used to how disgusting a human he is that we don't call it out enough, but that was pretty horrific. But back on this Supreme Court thing. So this woman, she sent a letter to her senator or whatever, which made its way to Feinstein. July, was it?
Yeah, it's been a while.
She wanted it to be confidential. And this thing got leaked out. Apparently there were like reporters, trying to find her at work and in her house. I guess before, the news hit us, they were already kind of harassing her. That shit makes me incredibly angry. Like, even I think a step even before that. We knew at some point that there was an anonymous letter. We didn't know who it was from, right? Like, we know her name is Christine Blasey Ford. We know her now, but for like, what was it, a few days or something? We knew that there was an allegation, but we didn't know who it was. There was no name attached. It was anonymous. And I just remember watching the news and hearing a lot of people in the news almost bullying her into coming out and like saying who she was and testifying and all that shit. Even though we all know what happens when you do that. You see, I'm pointing to my other monitor. I'm sorry, because I looked up her name, and one of the headlines there happened to be talking about the death threat she's getting, right? We know the type of social hardship that comes with talking about this type of stuff, especially when it's a high-profile one like this. And they just didn't seem to care. And so when you talk about, calling out the Democrats, like, yeah, that shit really bothers me because they don't really seem to care. It feels like it's politically expedient to them to use her. I'm not trying to demonize them too much here, but I will say I don't hear many of them talking about the privacy concern, which bothers the hell out of me. They're all talking about how, the Republicans are bullying this woman. They don't want her to speak, blah, blah, blah. And they're not really taking any accountability for the fact that her privacy got torn to shreds. And it really concerns me because I would think that, if I'm in a position where I have something that I want to tell my senator or whoever, and I want it to be confidential because, I'm afraid of what will happen to me. And there are terrible things happening to her now, not just death threats. I think she had to move or something like that. she has kids and stuff. I believe she has a family to worry about. That if I want to tell them something confidential, I would think that I should be able to trust them to keep it confidential. I'm not saying Feinstein or Feinstein, whatever her name is. I'm not saying she didn't keep her word, but it would make me lose faith in the entire apparatus of government to see that this thing couldn't be kept confidential at all. Like, it clearly got out. We knew who she was. That's very troubling to me. I'm very pissed off with the Republican reaction to this too, but as somebody who's personally more left leaning, I'm not registered as a Democrat, but I am more progressive, more liberal. So if I was to be in one of their camps, I guess I would be in theirs. I'm very, very dissatisfied with the way they're treating this. I would like to hear more of them at least own up to this problem with her. What's the word I'm looking for? Privacy being ripped to shreds and forcing her into this limelight. As much as the Republicans are bullying her, I feel like a lot of the people on the left were bullying her too, and they're not getting enough shit for it. So I saw a lot of it even before we knew what her name was. That was already pissing me off.
Yeah, no, I feel like they feel like because there's a little bit more moral right to it, like what she would do would help stop a man who's done something as reprehensible as this and who has like viewpoints that could be damaging to the country. I feel like they feel like they're a little bit more righteous and quote unquote begging her to do what's best for the nation. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. She's put in a like no-win situation, especially now that she's known, because the Republicans are gonna like fucking harass and denigrate her and try to tear her down as a person, even before she even like speaks, if she speaks. And the Democrats are going to, while kind of put her at a hero status, they're going to wrongfully like guilt her into being the hero. Like, you have to be the hero that we all want. You know, this is for the good of the nation. We really need this. You know what I mean? It's like it's a hard thing to say no to something like that when you could help possibly do something where a lot of people feel will help avoid a major crisis in this country, which is turning the Supreme Court into another political battlefield, which, sorry to say, you're doing now.
Yeah, I was about to say,
that's the irony of it. It's like you're doing it already before it even gets to the point where you feel like, okay, now it's just totally blatantly like, one side controls this and runs rampant with the law. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's just like, oh my God.
That ship has sailed. But I think you made the point that I was trying to get at, is that because they have a slightly higher moral ground to stand on, they're hiding behind that fact to not address what they're doing wrong. Because the conversation I hear from them is all about, we need to hear the women. We need to, in some cases, they just say believe the women, which I'm taking slight issue with the way that some of them are putting that statement. They're more focused on the general situation and the political landscape, and they're not focused on her at all until they want to mention how the Republicans are bullying her or whatever, but they don't want to own up to what they're doing to her either, because whether you like it or not, she should have some right to being private. And if she didn't want to do this, which she didn't, then she shouldn't have had to. She got thrust into this situation, and she's been, credit to her, she's been very, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, courageous, compliant, fucking strong-willed, because, I don't know. But I guess I go back to all those people who kept saying, she should reveal her identity and testify. You knew good and damn well. And what kills me is that they always brag about this. They say, we predicted that she would get the treatment she's essentially getting, the death threats, the having to move, the personal attacks, blah, blah, blah. And that's exactly what's happening. And they're putting that all on the other people, mostly on the right, who are attacking her. And it's like, if you knew that, why did you insist that she came out and put herself in this position? Take some responsibility for the fact that you were also trying to shove her into this position. For you, to be cynical, you could say for political advantage. To be charitable, you could say for, I don't know, moral righteousness. But whatever the case, you were a huge part of the reason she got shoved into this situation. So think of her as an individual person more often, which I don't hear a lot of them doing often enough.
No, and that's the big thing. And it's funny because I get it. You don't want this man to be Supreme Court, but I feel like everybody just kind of ignored history because we've seen this before. Clarence Thomas, Anita Hill. And it's funny because at that time, the GOP was adamant about, yeah, we should do the right thing. Now, I guess this leans to what Obama said in his speech about what the hell happened to the GOP, where in 91, even though you were getting a conservative judge, you did not want to go through this whole process without going through the right thing by having, this hearing and having this investigation and figuring out, like, is this guy actually what you want representing the country on the Supreme Court? And of course, she went through hell. People who wanted comments on the bench, treated her like shit. Her life was turned upside down, and some of them even warned before this, that by doing this to this lady, we're about to fuck her up. Now it's like, y'all don't really care about whether or not you're gonna fuck somebody else's life up again. History really didn't teach you anything.
It's pretty much permanent, right? Because why did I just blank on her name all of a sudden? The older version of this situation.
Oh, Anita Hill.
Yeah, Anita Hill.
Yeah,
we're still talking about her to this day. Like, her life has been defined by this.
I get why people want her to do it, but it's gonna be fucked up.
And now Christine Blasey Ford's life is probably going to be defined by this until the day she dies. Like, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. You already thrust her into the public eye. And the same way we're talking about Anita Hill now, let's see, a couple decades later, we're probably going to be talking about her the same way. And you can't take that back. And it's not pleasant. I can't imagine Anita Hill is always like, it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
No, not at all. Especially in a situation like that where I can't imagine to have been like, sexually. Well, see, Anita Hill at least has it a little. It's weird to say it this way, but she has it a little bit lighter because she was like, he was, wrong. He wrongly appropriated her with sexual innuendos and stuff like that. And it's funny, sad how old I am, but I remember distinctly the whole Coke can thing. I don't know if you remember that.
Nope.
Yeah, the main crux of the whole thing was like he was making like really lewd, suggestive remarks, but the most suggestive was when he was trying to like seduce her, talking to her, making her uncomfortable. He made her really uncomfortable when he mentioned that he must have left some pubic hair on his Coke can from some lady or something like that. Which, he basically made it suggest that he had like female pubic hair on his Coke can. I guess that was his way of saying like, I'll eat you out to her, which is like the weirdest fucking creepiest thing I've ever heard in my life.
I was about to ask why that was supposed to be a seduction line.
That the assumption is he was referring to oral sex.
Somebody needs more practice spitting game, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yo, dude, that is not a fucking like That's not cool. That's not cool at all. Because if she was like comfortable, she could have clowned her ass like, "What are you doing with your dick hair on your, you know, okay?" And so like, it was like the most weird. It was like the most surreal thing in the world. But of course, she got like her whole sexual past and all of that came up, and who she was. It's like it was a nightmare for her, and he eventually got nominated. They pretty much said, "Who gives a fuck if this shit happened or not? We want him as a judge." And
Sure. But I think like, the point you were getting at was that this situation is comparatively more serious
yeah,
in that allegedly, I'm a little uncomfortable even describing this, but I guess they were at a party when they were teenagers and they took her into some room, him and his friend Mark, what is his name? Mark Judge. And I guess he, was trying to take her clothes off. I guess she was trying to scream, so he put her hand on her mouth, which she had trouble breathing with. So she said at some point that she was a little afraid that he might accidentally kill her, if only because, his hand on her mouth, probably nostrils. It was fairly graphic. That is more serious, I suppose, in the sense that it's a physical assault.
yeah. Like again, with Anita Hill, it was more of a verbal thing, where this he physically, did things that were inappropriate beyond just sexual. He was just uber aggressive, like he said, the mouth thing, suffocating, all that.
Sure. And I guess I'm being careful with my wording because I'm not trying to downplay the Anita Hill situation. I'm just trying to accentuate the difference between it and this case. And I guess I would be remiss if I didn't say that this is alleged thus far. I don't know that we have much evidence, though there have been stuff coming out, but so far there hasn't been an investigation, maybe because some people don't want one.
Yeah, and see, the thing is, there's a lot of character stuff that makes this come into question, because you have like his friends, like the guy who wrote the book, who said the judge guy, he said he doesn't remember this ever happened, and he would never do that. But then he's written stuff in books talking about, Michelle Obama being more man than her husband, and that George Bush showed you how to be a real man by patting his wife on the ass in public. Like, what? The whole accounts of how like they did a lot of alcohol and drinking and partying in the schools, and no one said anything to stop them from doing what they want. Yet, you're trying to say that there's no possibility that Kavanaugh could do something like this. Kavanaugh himself, having made public comments, saying stuff like whatever happened in Georgetown Prep School stays in Georgetown Prep School. The wink and the nod conversation.
I want to talk about that one because I keep hearing people play back that quote about what happens in Georgetown Prep stays there. I don't think that's fair because people are using that clip and they're playing it with this situation in mind. I'm not saying he maybe wasn't a creepy motherfucker, but I don't think it's fair to do that. And I keep seeing that clip over and over in the news now with this thing in mind.
I kind of agree, except for like, I think even beyond that, when people say stuff like this, like I think it's a lot more poignant to people because of what's going on now. But it's kind of like if you just heard your friend say whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Your mind tends to jump anyway to what kind of crazy shit were you doing to say that? It's a statement of like the connection to the statement, at least the original creation of that whole whatever stays thing kind of has that connotation that this is you saying, I don't want to talk about something that I did because if I talk about it, it may be more trouble than it's worth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, To be fair, it could be possible that that's what he meant, that he had something somewhat more insidious in mind when he made that joke. But people make that, play off the Vegas line all the time without anybody batting an eye. I, I guess the reason I don't like it is because they're forcing that clip around so much, and they seem to be implying that he had this type of thing in mind, and I don't think. I'll put it this way: with all the stuff that we're seeing as far as character stuff, like you were mentioning, I'm leaning more and more toward believing her, but I don't think playing that clip is fair, and they do it a lot. Like I've seen it 5 times at least.
I agree. It's not as big of a smoking gun as people try to make it out to. I mean, it shouldn't be the focal point, but
because there's other like you were mentioning, that book is probably a much better thing to base that type of assertion on. But some random cherry pick.
Yeah, because he made comments about that guy and how he is with women, how Kavanaugh is with women in the book and in his interview. So that's a lot more like something to grab on. I agree. It's a lot more to grab on. I mean, I understand why people grab on it. But yeah, probably shouldn't be the focal point at all. I agree.
It's not even just like, it's like I've seen it on CNN and MSNBC and stuff, like major, like top faces in news playing that clip. I'm like, come on, you're better than this. Don't do that. Don't sink into this nonsense. There's plenty of more legitimate stuff to get on this guy about. It reminded me, I remember back when like Trump went to like Japan or something like that, and there was that stupid little situation with the fish or whatever. And everybody hopped on that, and it's like, really? Of all the things he does all day, this is what we're focusing on? But, yeah, I just wanted to take that one aside because I keep noticing it. It just keeps throwing me off. But I talked about how the more progressive Democrat people were pissing me off. But I certainly hope nobody thinks that means that I'm not bothered by the Republican right-leaning action in this, because it's been extreme. I made that little allusion to not wanting an investigation. So I think it was her, actually. She asked for an FBI investigation or whatever it would be before coming to testify, which I don't know what you think. I feel like that seems fine and reasonable. And I don't know that they're going to do it. I haven't heard that they were going to so far.
No, they keep denying it. And the funny thing is, like, I believe Trump actually said something about they should do it.
I think he said they shouldn't, and his claim was they don't want to and they don't do stuff like this.
Yeah, that's what it was. And then they came out and was like, yeah, we can do stuff like this. It's not that we don't want to. You just need to let it happen.
The Federal Bureau of Investigation can investigate shit. Like, surprise.
Yeah, I know. It's a very weird situation because it's like they're clearly trying not to get this out there, and they're clearly just like doing everything they can to discredit her, which that's the horrible side with them. It's right. I can't stress this enough. It goes back to the whole Cory Booker standoff thing where he released those documents. It's like, if you have no worry, you think this guy is the bee's knees. The fuck are you hiding, or what are you trying to like delay or stop all this stuff from happening? Nothing's gonna beat a good candidate.
Sure.
If he's as exemplary as you claim he is. So let it go out there, disprove it, and that strengthens your position. You know what I mean?
It would. It is worth noting that he was having problems before this, because there was that awkward conversation about the fact that he'd lied when testifying to Congress before. So this was he was already kind of in weird trouble. But as I'm watching this, I just think, wow, they have no principles at all. Because watching them deal with this shows me that this is clearly just about winning, just about securing power. They really don't care about anything else. If they saw, maybe this is too extreme to say, no, screw it. If they saw a video of him trying to rape her, they would still try to confirm this guy. I mean, it is incredibly frustrating to watch them do this, to watch this character assassination some of them are doing with her for no good reason.
Yeah.
To watch Trump lie about the FBI and whether they can do investigations like this or whether they want to, he can order that investigation. It's not a big deal. He just doesn't want to, and he's not even just the level of straightforward, we don't give a shit attitude they have about confirming this guy is disgusting. No matter what anybody tries, this woman is saying she suffered through something like attempted rape in high school, something that's been traumatic and she's been dealing with her entire life. And now she's being forcibly thrust into the public eye to have to deal with it. And there's still no sympathy from these motherfuckers. Like, they're saying, who's the chair of this committee? What's his name? Shit, I can't remember. I'm sorry. But they're saying that she has to come and testify on Monday, right?
Now they're saying tomorrow. They were trying to say this past Monday. Now they're.
I thought.
Or is it this past? Or is it the next Friday? I forget because they said Friday, but I forget if I guess.
So I think on Friday, tomorrow at 10 a.m., she has to have like her prepared testimony or whatever presented to them.
Grassley is the chair.
Yeah. So I think tomorrow by 10, she has to present them with like a written full testimony or whatever she's going to say or whatever. And then on Monday, they're going to have like the actual sit down thing with them. So they keep denying any investigation, which tells me that they don't really care what the truth is. They just want to get her up there and get this out of the way so that they can confirm this guy before the midterms.
Yeah.
They're denying her these investigations. They're forcing her to do this in an unreasonable amount of time. Can you imagine if some random organization said that you have to like fly out and do this thing in like a few days out of nowhere?
Yeah.
That's not fair or reasonable. Like, she has a life. And there's no.
And I mean, this is like some really hard stuff to deal with. Like, have you heard women talk about why they haven't talked about that stuff and why they don't stuff like Simone Sanders was just on TV and this guy was talking about how like it's just foolish that she would want to not talk about this, and she responded about how like something she never talked about, like how she actually was raped while drunk in college, and she never talked about it because it was like, you know, she felt embarrassed, she felt scared, frightened, and it's just like she didn't want to say anything because she didn't know if anybody would believe her because she was drunk at the time. Yeah.
Sure, and they'd probably blame her too, but
yeah,
for being drunk. I don't know. I feel like I started to watch that conversation and I could already tell it was getting kind of weird, so I think I stopped watching it. But
yeah, no, it was a very uncomfortable conversation because I haven't sit and watched. It's like, yeah, and you could tell that dude, he felt like really stupid for saying what he said when she started talking about that, because he was like, oh shit, you know, because and that's the thing, like. I've had people who I've never would have thought would have been in that situation tell me things. And I could say, like, from a personal standpoint, it was quite shocking and alarming. It's like, it's also hard, like, for me to fathom, like, how do you go on and quote unquote act normal, like, with that pent up inside you? But a lot of women have to do it.
Sure.
So, yeah.
I want to be clear. I wasn't avoiding that because I knew that was what she was talking about. I just sensed like a level of annoyance in the air, like right at the start of the conversation.
Yeah.
So I had no idea that's where that conversation went.
Well, yeah. I would have thought it would have been like an uncomfortable, because I mean, it's uncomfortable to hear people talk about that stuff, no matter how understanding it concerned you can be. It's still like, thinking back to the conversations I've had with people who had to have that, it's still like, it's the shit's emotionally draining, and it makes you just wonder, just like, damn, as fucked up as I am, how fucked up are you? Like, jeez.
And I guess that is part of the reason this behavior on the right is bothering the shit out of me because she went through this very emotionally extreme situation, and now the entire earth knows about it, which I'm sure doesn't feel great. Especially since I don't know how old her. I think she has kids, and I don't know how old they are, but let's assume they're of an age where they can understand things. Maybe they know that their mother almost got sexually assaulted or whatever by this guy. Like, this is a very extreme emotional thing to deal with, and their reaction is, "Fuck you! You better show up by Monday." Like, are you serious?
Right.
No human decency at all, just to confirm this dude?
Exactly.
Unbelievable.
Like, I would think that at the least they would want to be like, okay, well, maybe we can possibly have a private conversation with her first, and then start thinking about what type of what are we doing? You know what I mean? Because you can't just tell somebody to get the fuck up and come talk to me. I'm sorry. Like, oh, you got like sexually assaulted? You need to talk to me now. I don't care how you feel about it. Like, that's
And real talk, what is the point of doing this? What are they going to say? That she's going to come in and say this happened. He's going to be like, no, she's lying. What's the point without this investigation of a disinterested third party trying to verify the story one way or the other? What is the point of doing this? They're going to say the same shit they've been saying in public this last week, right?
right.
What are they supposed to do with that? So why rush this with no outside investigation? What do you hope to gain here? You either believe her at this point, right now, based on what we have in public record and stuff, you either believe her or you don't. So what are we doing?
Yeah, and again, if you think she's lying, you don't need to do a public hearing first. You do an investigation. That's the thing. Like, why won't you let them investigate to see like corroborate her story? That's the thing. Like, you could have quieted this all down by saying like, well, we're gonna take a couple of days and let the FBI find out a little about the situation before we decide. All you have to do.
So there's two ways to interpret that, and neither one is good. Either they believe her and they don't want the FBI or whoever to prove her right and really screw up their candidate, or it doesn't matter to them one way or the other. They just want to hurry this shit up and get this guy confirmed before the midterms. Neither one of those interpretations is good, but that's the only way I can make sense of this. Is that either they think this dude really did do it and they're willing to put him in the Supreme Court anyway because they don't care, or they really don't care about anything across the board except getting a conservative judge on the Supreme Court. Fuck everything else.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the things that could be poked at in this situation is going back to the records, because it could be made a point could be made that perhaps this was one of the things in the records that you did not want coming to light, and this is why we needed to see those records. Like, there is a kind of out for the Democrats to kind of ease up on for it and just kind of push it back to the records thing. They're pushing for her to be the one. Although I feel like maybe that's part of the reason why they're pushing for her to do this, so they can like use her in tandem with some record that also discussed it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I feel like they just like she's just like a serious pawn that they're trying to sacrifice so they can like run their gambit.
On both sides. It bothers me because I feel bad for her individually as a person.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I feel worse for her out of everything.
I guess that's what's killed me because everybody's using her name and talking about her, but I don't feel like they really have her in mind. They have their political goals in mind, and she just happens to be a piece on the board.
Yeah.
Again, I don't mean to be overly cynical, and again, I'm more left-leaning, so especially given the political landscape right now, it's really hard to. I'm not trying to make an equivalency here, but I'm thoroughly dissatisfied with what I'm seeing here across the board. I will say as a more minor point, I keep seeing this conversation, and it's a conversation around sexual assault in general. I briefly alluded to it earlier. I keep hearing people say, we need to believe the victim, we need to believe the women. And I understand that statement because generally, I was going to say historically, but I guess apparently even now, we have had problems not believing in these, even in cases where it's been proven victims. We just called them liars off the bat without really giving them a chance. It's been extremely unfair, I guess, is the point I'm making. But I take a little issue with the way that it's phrased, saying that we should just believe the accusers or whoever they are. I don't think you need to say that. I think you need to say, it's not that you need to side with the accuser or the accused. You just need to side with the facts wherever they lead. Because I saw a lot of people immediately the second this dropped, and they were all on board with either her or him, and that's it. They didn't. Before we had any facts about this, they just knew that there was a sexual assault. Before there was any they knew that a sexual assault was alleged. They didn't know any details. They didn't know who it was. They didn't know when it was. Nothing, and they'd already made up their minds. I'm like, can we at least hear what the supposed situation was before we start making up our minds here? I don't know.
I get it because things have been so imbalanced one way,
right?
That it's kind of hard for people not to want to let's just all jump on board and start pushing the envelope for the other side. Kind of like when you've been the quote unquote victim for so long, you need to weight the shift a little bit more. Because again, I've known many women who've had issues.
Sure.
And growing up in the times that I was it was a lot of things you were taught to treat women that way, which is fucked up.
I would say, I guess the statement I'm hearing nowadays a lot is believe women, believe the victim, blah, blah, blah. And I would say what we need to be saying is stop defaulting to calling women liars. I think that's all you really need to say. You don't need to start off with the assumption that they're telling the truth, because I don't feel like you should start with that assumption in any kind of crime. You should say that.
Well, I think part of the problem is that there is a long-standing idea that even though it was never executed that way, that the whole guilty until proven innocent thing was a part of our legal system even before all of this stuff happened. I mean, it's an old saying, you have to prove your innocence is generally the term that comes up.
Isn't the saying
when there's a case
innocent until proven guilty?
Well,
it's supposed to be the other way around.
That's the official statement, but it's always been the underlying. And again, it's generally for the victimized groups that feel that way. To be innocent until proven guilty is always been kind of that's what they say, but in reality, you're not. You know what I mean?
I mean, I've certainly seen it both ways. I guess what I'm advocating for is stick closer to the middle until the facts push you one way or the other. Because I see some people saying it quite forcibly that you should just default to believing the woman. And again, it has been very unbalanced in the wrong direction for too long. And it is true that the majority of the women who make such an allegation are telling the truth, if only because why would you do it when you see the consequences of doing it, as experienced by somebody like Miss Ford here? I guess I look at that phrase innocent until proven guilty as the ideal that we should be reaching for. We shouldn't make up our minds one way or the other. We should say, all right, here's the two stories. Where is the evidence pointing? And I said already that the more of it I see, the more I'm leaning toward her. But I did start in the middle. And I don't like this Kavanaugh motherfucker, but I started off in the middle and I was like, let's hear what's going on. You mentioned that dude's book. There's other things like the notes her therapist took back in like 2012 or whatever, which unfortunately don't mention his name directly, which probably would have really clinched this for her. But they do mention pretty much the story she was telling, that she told her therapist like years before any of this happened. So it's not like some sort of weird political tactic on her part. There's a lot of stuff that's making me lean toward her. None of it counts as like obvious knockdown evidence yet, but I'm letting myself be swayed by the evidence, which is pushing me in her direction. I'm not just going there because, she's the alleged victim or she's the woman or whatever. I'm leaning toward there because it seems to be more right, which I think is the standard we all ought to shoot for.
Yeah, it is. But again, I can understand why it's not that way because, again, when you're that side that tends to get the ignore, you're going to push it harder. That you're going to push the envelope harder towards that way. You're not going to be, yeah. So
I certainly get it, and that's part of the reason I bring it up is because I'm definitely acknowledging that the bounce has been too far, and now because of that, I see people overcorrecting for it, and I'm just thinking, I don't think you want to push it in the other direction. That's not how justice is supposed to work. You're supposed to be pushing it back to the middle of fairness. Again, my saying isn't that we should just believe anybody who makes an allegation. It's that we shouldn't call them fucking liars off the bat when we don't have any evidence. Which unfortunately has been happening to women, including her, too often. Again, people were calling her liars, calling her a liar before we knew anything about this.
Yeah, no. I mean,
not fair. And it seems pretty inaccurate the more you see of this story. It's almost, well, I'm not going to say it too forcefully because there's more evidence to come, hopefully, but I would say her argument is looking much better than his.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting.
We have a guy.
It's going to be interesting.
This guy's going to be on the Supreme Court, man. I shouldn't say it like that. Like I'm just accepting this idea that he sexually assaulted her. I could still be, persuaded elsewise. I put it this way: I'm not lamenting it because I necessarily think he did it. It's just the way they're gonna confirm him is really depressing. That they don't care about anything at all. They've been bullshit. Like it's just been such blatant nonsense. The way he answers questions and he's I didn't know what what's the point of this. It has been turned into just another political battlefield, and I'm afraid it's just going to stay that way.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's sad to say that you kind of wish she doesn't end up as another Anita Hill, but I feel like that's just the way it's going to go.
Yes. Let's say they confirm this dude. How do you feel like that impacts the Republican Party moving forward from now?
Well, I think they already see the writing on the wall, and that's why they're in such a rush. Because I do think that they're at a point where they're about to be like hit hard with a lot of losses. Like, I'm not 100% sure that they're going to lose the Senate, but or the House for that matter either. But I feel like they kind of have a like urgency because they feel like that's where it's going to lean, or at least the majority is going to lessen to where it could be a lot easier. Like with the Senate, like they may go from having the 51-49 to maybe a 51-50, making it like just that much more perilous, or anything like that. Like I think that's what they're hoping, like to avoid the peril of the like shift. They see the paragon shifting, and it's like we get everything we can get in now. That way, we have a foothold on things, especially with the Supreme Court. If you can get him in, you have a huge advantage because any laws that the Democrats make now, if he plays ball like they seem to think he's going to do, they can strike down any law the fucking Democrats come up with. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's just like, sure, you can own the House and the Senate or one or the other. Whatever legislation that you pass now can be brought up to subject for approval by the Supreme Court. And, with our majority, shit, we could flex on you that way without even having to involve the president. That is the genius thing about this, is that if they get that majority of the Supreme Court, you can circumvent having to worry about the president actually doing a veto or executive order on shit, and you can save face for the president.
So it's the reason I asked the question is because I think it was this morning I was watching the news and somebody had made this point that women have been leaving the Republican Party over things like this. I'm sure. And I just looked at that and I just think, how is it they're going to survive? Because they refuse to really try to reach out to anybody who's not white, let's say. They're not doing anything to really endear themselves to the African American community, to the Hispanic community, to anybody else, really. They're certainly not generally friends of the LGBTQ community. And they're pissing off their female portion. Like, on some level, I just don't understand why it is that they don't seem to want to bring more people into the party to strengthen themselves. They seem to be perfectly content with just kind of focusing on a narrow demographic and just pissing off everybody else to no end. And I can't imagine that that's sustainable in the long run. Like, you need people in the party to exist.
But that's the thing. Their plans are never really long run anymore. It's just like the whole, let's just get Trump into office because we'll have power. We'll figure it out later type thing. You know what I mean? Which they haven't been able to really figure out. Now, the goal is we take the Supreme Court. We have the highest law in the land in our hands. Sure, we may not get our ass kicked in these elections, but we'll eventually figure out and turn the shift. I mean, hey, look what happened. Obama's first election, 2008. Republicans got
equals 2008.
Well, I'm sorry. Like, what the hell? Creepy robot in the background. Don't know how I turned her on, but okay.
Actually,
shut out, girl. But no, 2008, there was a shift in the Senate, in the House, and they got their ass kicks, but somehow they were able to turn it around so that in 2012 they were able to regain power. And I feel like that's the thing. They figure, like, because of the way they base are, like how their base gets scared when liberals get into control, and maybe that's what they think is going to happen now. Like, I think they forget that the X factor was that Obama awoken a lot of the ugliness that America still has existing. And the fear from the people who have those ugly ideas is kind of what helped them get the shift in Congress. Whereas this time, I guess they're banking on the same thing. It's like, yeah, right now everybody is kind of more hyped up about like, we need to get this dude out of office and get rid of his policies. But they're figuring like, maybe the liberals will come in and do a little too much liberal shit, and they can use that to their advantage and to scare them. But hey, well, at least we have the Supreme Court because hey, we could just use that and we can bring things to the Supreme Court, and then we could be like, well, no, this person challenged it. The Supreme Court says so. It ain't our fault. You know what I mean? I feel like that's the part of their plan is to kind of like use the Supreme Court as a way to pull some of the weight that they, some of the ire they got for when they fucked with Obama could be lifted if the Supreme Court was the one being the heavy-handed one, and they could pretend like they had nothing to do with this.
It's just, I can see why it is beneficial on some level. I just watched them and I think this is like watching a kamikaze, just like the jet just flying down. It's again, it just seems like they don't have any real long-term desire to thrive. They just don't care about. I'm not saying this in like some hippie way. Like they need to be inclusive and bring everybody in. Like, if you're an organization, you are supposed to want either a lot of people or just the most talented people, whatever. You should want people to want to be with you. And they're perfectly content in just chasing pretty much everybody away, except for, I hate to say it like this, but straight white men, pretty much. And not even just straight white gun-loving Christian men. It's a very narrow demographic they seem to want to focus on.
No, but it's always the crux of their plan is to be short-term, like to do what we can for what's going on now. And we'll worry about everything else later. Same thing with the environmental issues, how they treat the environment, taxes and finances, how they like structure things for like the people who have money, and not necessarily look for long term. It's like how do we sustain the actual government for years to come?
And that's the other thing. It's such a concerted effort, and the goal doesn't make sense to me. It's pretty much usually just either to make money or to push these hyper-Christian ideals, which I don't even think a lot of people really find that appealing. I think... Remember you sent me that message the other day about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?
Yeah.
And I look at that and I think this is one of the big problems with politics, is that we're not necessarily electing the most competent people. We're just kind of electing, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the people who seem to look the best, who appear so for the right, that means these sort of Christian cartoon characters. That's why we had that era of, not just Romney with his Mormonism and stuff, why we had Paul Ryan, why we had Sarah Palin coming down from Alaska, shaking up the U.S. Part of the reason I had such a problem with the Republican Party overall for so long is not because I hate this idea of being like fiscally conservative. It's that too many of the people they send out to represent them are these religious fanatics, like far more so than comparison to the average person you see walking down the street, right? So they're almost a caricature of a Christian person. And for us, which is why I bring out Cortez, I'm trying not to like demean her here, but I can't help but look at her and look at that interview and think, I feel like a lot of people saw her and just saw she's a brown woman who's saying some like really positive stuff.
Yeah.
And that gave her more of a pass than it should have. And I'm not equating. I could see her being more competent than plenty of other people I've seen, but I guess my point is it's like we're casting actors for a movie, right? It's the people who look like the role, who can play the role the best, but they don't necessarily know how to do it. Like if you're casting a doctor role, like you found somebody who kind of looks like a doctor, who can say some doctor shit, but you wouldn't really put them in an operating room. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I feel like I feel like part of the reason we see this type of extreme behavior in the Republican Party and some of it in the Democrat Party is because these aren't people with actual principles. They're religious maniacs, or they have some dogmatic attachment to certain free market ideas. And not that free market is necessarily a bad set of ideas. It's just they're always the people who are, because they're caricatures, they have to take it to the most extreme version possible.
But you know what? I think you touched on one of the problems, which is, generally speaking, us, the voters. And it's something that politicians won't say because, of course, they don't want to piss us off. But part of the reason the Republican Party, I've always said the Republican Party has been able to get away with that type of mentality and that type of structure towards how they campaign, is because they understand that we tend to lean into the more appealing, quote unquote, like you said, Hollywood actors, the people who play the role well, who they do a great job at being. It's like, we become immersed in what they say. As far as the high note stuff and the cool stuff, but again, going back to Cortez, when asked a real question, she had no answers, really. She didn't show like much aptitude in her ability to actually govern, like to execute what you need to do when it comes to being in the government and being a government official. She was shaky, but she talks about things that is very appealing and says it in a very passionate, convincing way. Universal health care, guaranteed jobs, $15 minimum wage. Those are all extremely appealing things. And when you're able to convey them in a very convincing way, we tend to eat it up, It's like, we love fucking going to watch Marvel movies because Marvel does it in a convincing way and it's entertaining to us and it appeals to us. A lot of politicians treat politics the same way. Some don't, but they still get caught into it. Just a perfect example would be Obama, because I don't think anybody really listened to what Obama said, but he actually was a perfect character for people. A minority, liberal, spoke passionately about helping people and doing things to make the country better for everybody, not just a certain group or anything like that, Very inspiring talker. Like when you listen to Obama talk, you get inspired. I think unintentionally he played the perfect Hollywood role for a lot of people. And that's why within the second term came, you got a lot of people being more dissenting because they were like, well, you promised us. That's like, did you actually listen to this man? He didn't promise much of anything, to be quite honest. His first run.
I mean, you could take issue with things if you want. Like, I don't know. I like to call it Obamacare. I don't know why people hate that name. I think it's a nice name. You want to take,
because it's the reason I can tell you why people hate the name, because the term wasn't coined by people who cared about Obama. It was coined by the Republicans who used it as a way to scare their constituency and try to scare other people into thinking like, this is his thing. This is the liberal thing that is coming to get you. They, they use it as a boogeyman tactic, and that's why people don't like it, because it's that like one thing that they campaign on that helped them. Again, 2012, that term helped them get back in power, because it was like, do you want this Obamacare that's going to, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Obama does this.
I get it. I would have leaned into that shit so hard and just owned the fuck out of it, but which he did a little bit. But if you want to take issue with specific things in there that he may have, I feel like there's a line that needs to be drawn, because people will say like they made a promise and they didn't keep it. I think there's things that it makes it sound like they're always lying to you. I'm sure that there was things he said that he had every intention of doing and then just could not do. Which
affordable healthcare is the prime example. Is that it was torn to pieces by them in 2010. I mean, I said 2012. I should have said 2010 because that's when they got the House and Congress back. 2 years into his office, they made that bill hell. And I always like to point out the fact that they had the majority yet they passed it. People don't really time to pay attention to that. Like, I find that hilarious that at the time when they had the majority, they were the ones that passed it, by the way. So that's the like funny irony about the affordable health care, Obamacare. Anyway,
wasn't some of that based off Romney's plan? So
yeah, and exactly. It's like, part of this plan was made up by the guy who y'all think should have been president. So like, y'all are idiots. Fucking idiots. Like, but again, it's playing the role. Again, the Hollywood, spiel about how horrible this man's thing was and flipping it on him. Everybody forgets that they put it in place in the first place. Because they play their part so well that we fall in love with the part. It's the same. It's pretty much the same principle of how when we love an actor so much, we don't refer to them as themselves, but we refer to them as a character because they've done such a good job of building this character to us. It's more much in that same instance. It's like, we love you, Captain America. My name is Chris Evans. Captain America, you're the greatest. But I'm Chris. You know what I mean?
Shut up, you Captain America.
Exactly.
Or Steve Rogers, if you prefer.
Right. Like, we'll call you by your real name then, Steve. Like, come on, but
I want to be clear.
Republicans lean into that shit.
Yeah.
Like you said, they lean into that shit. They go and like, y'all dumb motherfuckers are gonna buy into this, and we gonna go with it.
Which turns into a cycle of ever more extreme behavior. Again, if you were to just say bare bone Republican, just want to be fiscally conservative, maybe even in some ways socially conservative, fine. It's not a big fucking deal. Doesn't matter. Those are like minor differences for the most part. But they always have to lean into they always have to make themselves a caricature of a Republican. They have to support the most extreme business-friendly behavior, like the tax cuts, shitting on poor people. Like they have to present this kind of resentment for people they think are getting handouts, which very Christ-like, by the way. They always have to lean into the most Bible-thumping version of a human they could possibly be. And that's largely the reason I don't tend to be able to roll with them. Not because I hate Republicans or think being conservative is inherently bad. It's because the people they put up to represent them are often just more extreme than anybody I could reasonably tolerate. When I go back to the 2016 election before Trump really took over, look at the Republican landscape. Ben Carson, fucking, was Romney up there again? I don't.
Did Romney run again? I don't think he ran.
I think Bachmann was up there.
I don't think I definitely don't think Romney ran again. I think he was still healing from his ass whipping.
That dude looks like a vampire. What is that dude's name? The one where Trump, made that conspiracy theory about his dad killing JFK.
Oh gosh, what is his name? Because that was
I hear his name every day, and like, he's a Texan. He's really?
Oh, Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
Ted Cruz, you idiot. Yo, he's gonna lose like shit. You know this, right?
Sure.
No, because have you seen like Beto O'Rourke like speak?
Yeah, he's the
white Obama. He's gonna crush the soul.
That's how Obama made it. Like when you're a black person, you can say that they're the white this. That's how you know you made it as a black person. But
Right.
but yeah, if you were to like go back and just look at the arena of Republicans before Trump got in there and took over, they were all cartoon characters. I looked at them like, how could I take anybody on that side seriously?
Yeah.
I remember
Well,
thinking very vividly, like, why is it that the top people you guys keep putting out to represent you are the most extreme versions of a person you could possibly put up there? What you were saying?
You know, Trump was somewhat of a cartoon character, but he was the more realistic one because again, theatrics. He understood theater, and he sold. I mean, the fucking MAGA shit. That's the biggest theater ever.
Rick Santorum. I forgot about him.
Oh man. You know, he like Trump had a perfect storm. He had a bunch of like fucking chuckleheads, and he was just like the most like magnetic personality. That's sad. Cause like none of them could like, you know, do it. Yeah, they oh my god. Gosh, 2016.
I think I bring it up because it just goes to the point. I think the reason to tie it all back, because what I was originally getting at was you see this extreme focus on these goals by Republicans, even if it's damaging to their party. And I think the reason is because we ended up electing very extreme individuals because of the way we elect them, because we're electing characters, we're not treating elections like job interviews and trying to hire the best person for the job. We're just kind of hiring as though we're casting for an acting role, and whoever can do it the most dramatically wins. And I do want to be clear, I'm not necessarily trying to shit on Miss Cortez too much. That particular interview that we're talking about didn't show out that well, but I don't know her as well, so I'm not going to make it seem like she's like incompetent and she shouldn't have won and blah, blah, blah.
You know, I think I said it to you the other day about it. It's not that like you said, it's not that she's incompetent. The thing is, she shows her inexperience and she shows her lack of game plan. And I think again, this is the thing that I said that I have the biggest problem about the whole Bernie social Democrats or whatever the Democratic socialists or whatever they call themselves, which is again, I really hate that. But it's like they're very, very flamboyant and passionate, and they have some ideas that sound very, very good. The problem is they don't have any way of executing those plans because generally, when asked how they're going to do something, they don't have an answer. They just know that they want to do it, and that's not a good look. Like, you can't even bullshit an answer. They just sound clueless as to how to execute. And that's the biggest problem. Like, I need you not to just be sure in what you want. I need you to be sure, like sound like you're sure that you can get it done. And that's the thing that she didn't sound. She didn't sound sure. She was just spitballing.
I want to clarify on that comment that I made about, electing the brown woman or whatever. I'm not trying to disqualify her because of her race or whatever. I'm just making a general point that I was comparing what I'm going to call us as more liberal people to the people on the right. The right gets turned on by these Bible thumping people who like to jerk off, CEOs of top 500 companies. They're all about money and God, right? That's what turns on the right. But on the left, we're very acutely aware of historically unfair treatment toward women, people in the LGBTQ community, and people of color, right? So we really like to see people of those different groups or intersections of those groups succeed. And I think it affects our judgment a little bit sometimes. Again, I'm not saying she's necessarily a case of this, but as competent as I think Obama was, there were people who admittedly voted for him because he was black. Like they said it point blank. I remember it vividly them saying that. Like,
No, I don't know if I told you or not. I know I've told this story before, but I remember a couple of years into his presidency, like remember when they had the first government freeze?
can't say I remember it well.
Yeah. Well, during his presidency, there was a government freeze where they started like basically after the Republicans won Congress, or where they had enough of sway where they could block certain things. They basically did that whole like we're not going to approve a budget thing, so people can't work. And that first one hit, and I remember when people were coming back, and I was in a Burger King, and this older black lady was just completely, she out of nowhere decided to talk to me. It's like, I'm not voting for Obama ever again. And I'm like, okay, because I don't know you. Why am I trying to have this conversation? But she continued on to say how like because he wasn't doing enough for black people, and he didn't keep his promise to us. And it's like, that man never. I'm like, I didn't say it to her because it's like if I was like actually started a logical argument with her, it would have turned ugly because stupid people like that don't listen. But my mind is just like, that man never said that he was going to give us our 40 acres and a mule. What are you talking about, lady? And he didn't cause the government to shut down. Congress did. But it's like, it's irrational to them because, again, they hear the theatric parts and don't necessarily pay attention to what's actually being said or done. And when they don't, like, when they find out, like, yo, it's actually not that as simple as what you thought, like, in whatever you heard, whatever fantasy tale you heard, that's when people start to talk about, like, they betrayed and they don't want to fuck with you no more, and we need to just destroy the government and start all over. That's when you get that, like, ridiculous, like, strand of conversation. That's where you get the theater to be set up again for, the opposition who, again, Republicans did a great job of pumping the idea of fear and loathing of the, like, previous 8 years. You saw what he did to y'all. He took away your rights as an American. You couldn't even be free. You didn't have free will no more. They tried to take your guns. They tried to force you to pay for poor people, and to get healthcare, quote unquote, while the shit was benefiting them too. It's like the narrative they set up very, very well for what we got now. And Trump leaned into that shit extra hard because that's all he had to go on was, fuck, I just need to be as theatrical, as flamboyant as possible. And
sure.
Yeah.
I just bring it up because it makes me wonder sometimes if we're voting for the right reasons. Like, I think Obama, as an example, was the right choice for competence. Although, to be fair, the first time I saw him, it was really hard for me to take, it feels sad to say it now, but McCain seriously. Not because I didn't think he was serious, but because Palin was there. And I was like, I don't know if I can trust somebody who's rolling with this woman.
That broke my heart because, again, I've always thought that he was a competent person. I said to people, I remember saying to people before the election, it's like, if he were by some chance to win, he wouldn't probably be a bad president until Palin showed up. And then when Palin showed up, it was like, dude, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, the one thing that you could have done to derail yourself, and that's what you did.
So that made that hard. And then later with Romney, again, one of my biggest issues with the Republicans is just this overwhelming focus on Christian ideology, as though there aren't other religions or lack thereof in this country, and wanting to push it because, I mean, fuck, one of the biggest controversies with this Kavanaugh dude is around the idea that they could get rid of Roe versus Wade which is only something anybody would want for pretty much religious reasons at this point. So that made that decision kind of hard. But I do think outside of those bad matchups, Obama could have been a good choice. As well, Miss Cortez here could be a great choice. But did you vote for her because she's a good choice or because she was a energetic brown woman challenging the establishment because she beat that one dude who, been there for a while?
I think that's part of it.
Sorry?
No, I'm saying I think that's part of it. But I also remember the narrative afterwards, like when people were talking about and celebrating her victory, like, see, we're sick and tired of the old guard and blah, blah. It's like, I totally get it. There's a lot of things about the older Democratic Party members that needs to change. I personally have said always with Congress, period, you need to establish better term limits. You need to establish term limits. I forget which one. I think is it the House or the Senate? I think it's Senate where you can just continually run. No, you need to establish term limits because you end up with the like Robert Byrds of the Democrats and the fucking Strom Thurmonds of the Republicans, who are not saying that with Strom Thurmond, I'm definitely saying he has horrible ideals because this motherfucker supported segregation and shit like that. But with someone like Robert Byrd, who's supposed to be like a liberal, he has good fundamental ideas, but his path of getting things done aren't mature enough. And I think that's one of the reasons why you have stupid backwards laws like we talked about a long time ago. The whole no technology on the Senate floor thing. It's like, that's some old people shit. It's 2018. What do you mean no technology? The fuck out, this world is like things don't advance because you get these old motherfuckers. And I hate to say it this way, but generally speaking, these old white male motherfuckers continually thrown back into the system, not necessarily like who some of them can appreciate new modern ideas, but their way of go about executing and the way they go about dealing with them or relating to them is just horrible because they're old.
Sure. I wonder if people feel like she's too young because I just looked her up and I realized she's only like a couple years older than I am, which means I can start running for shit.
No, you could be a senator. Yeah, you just can't be president. The only thing you can't do is be president. You can run for anything but president, I believe. I don't think you can do governor either. But you can be anything else.
I don't know that I'm particularly I don't want to say interested. I will say that I'm aware that I'm not competent enough to do that job.
Oh, see, you one of the smart ones. You're not one of the people who say, "Oh, I could do this better than them." Like, no, you. And that would honestly, that's what something that would make you actually a good candidate because you recognize your limitations and what you lack.
I feel like if I was ever to make the decision to say run for office or whatever, it would be like a couple of years probably before I really do it because I'd be like, all right, I need to study the fuck out of a lot of subjects.
Yeah, I want to be good at. Yeah, you want to be good at your job.
I want to understand political history better. I want to understand like global economics and stuff better. I mean, there's a wide array of knowledge to gain and think through before just hopping up and doing that shit.
Yeah, no, it's not something that you should just do because you think you can do it.
It is good that anybody can do it, but I think we have to have the most in a nation with like millions upon millions of people. You would think we would have geniuses in these positions, and we just don't, and it's alarming. Which a lot of times it feels like we just have like regular motherfuckers off the street. Matter of fact, I don't know if it's true, but maybe you saw it. I saw some headline earlier, and I was like, that's bullshit, so I didn't really read it, but maybe it was true. It said the woman who like flipped off the president while she was cycling or whatever is running for office. Is that legit?
She was what?
says she's running for some office or something.
No, you said something about recycling. Say that.
No, she was cycling. She was like on a bike or whatever. She
Oh.
flipped off the president in his motorcade or whatever it was.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that is true.
Woman who flipped off Trump runs for and it was CNN who said it, so it's probably not bullshit.
No, it's not. I saw that.
So does she have like any political education or
no
experience?
idea.
Because my first thought when I saw this, like, so she flips off the president and now she's gonna run for office. And my cynical side is like, come the fuck on. But my hopeful side is like, I bet she went to school and she studied like, she has like a doctorate in political science or whatever. I don't know. I'm hoping that she's very competent and whatever. She's not just like a random person running.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Some people just don't.
But you know what? I will say this: if the bar gets lowered enough and continues to be lowered, maybe I really will run for office.
I mean, at this point,
Man.
who knows? But yeah,
But I think that's I'm sure there was a lot of other shit, but I think that was the main stuff.
yeah. No, I mean, small things like Michael Flynn. They said they're not gonna convict him until after midterms, which I find funny.
There was Donald Trump Jr.
Yeah, he's an idiot always. I mean, it's Trump people. They're fucking dumb.
People believed it.
You had apparently Michael Cohen has been repeatedly interviewing with Robert Mueller.
It's weirdly hard to focus on that. I don't know if we mentioned it directly because we were focused more on Maria, but Florence did touch down in Carolina. I don't know where the count is at, but when I had first started hearing about it, I think at least 3 people. There were at least 3 fatalities.
6 was the last that I heard.
Okay, so I haven't been following it too closely, but it looks like a rough go over there. So anything people can do. I notice when I go to the stores and I do like the self-checkout thing, it asks me if I want to like donate to natural disaster relief or whatever it is. And I do it every time. And I just realized that like because I'm an asshole and I don't just like do bulk shopping, I keep going to the store like several times a day. So I'm probably giving it like a shit ton of money to this thing because I do it every time. I'm not financially responsible. But you guys should like donate in a more deliberate way.
Yeah. I mean, it's always a good way though. I like doing things like that because it's like, you know, me and I have the money to do it, but if you're willing to do it, shit, do it.
Very true. I mean, in the store thing, it's like it just gives you options. Like you can donate $1, $2, whatever. I usually do like $1 or $2, but I go several times a day, so I'm sure I'd be giving like $50 at this point because I'm not a responsible adult. So if I have like a whim for like a chocolate bar, I'm just gonna like drive over to the store and get a chocolate bar, not thinking about buying anything else. And then I'll come home and be like, you know what else I could use? Grapes, and then go right back. But yeah, that thing touched down. It's some heavy flooding. Shout out to the first responder people, or whatever you want to call them. Volunteers, all the people over there helping. Keep following that. Hopefully it turns out well. And I'm thinking by the next show, somebody will have beaten Spider-Man.
Yeah. Guys, you will probably be ending up with a spoiler cast this weekend. Or the weekend of this as of this recording. We probably will be doing something because I'm almost through everybody.
That game is so fucking good.
It is. On an off note, for some reason I turned on Impact Wrestling. Austin Aries to like fight somebody. Like, yo. One, the announcers look weird. Like one guy looks like he's a fucking cheap porn producer. 2, I was kind of weirded out by this the like matchups they were showing for the knockouts, because they have Tully Blanchard's daughter. If you don't know who Tully Blanchard is, you need to go back and watch Real Wrestling, people. Anyway, but Tully Blanchard's daughter is actually, I believe, the champ for them. But she's fighting somebody. Her name is Fabi Apache. And yes, she wears an Indian headdress to the world.
Oh, racist.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
second I heard that name, I was like, that's racist.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know about this. But then now there's a match with Austin Aries. He's a champ. I guess he's getting what he wants in life now that he left WWE. He's fighting a Mexican wrestler named Texano. So it's like, okay, TNA or Impact, whatever you want to call it.
Sorry, I'm just looking up this. I have to know that this woman has some kind of Native American.
She's a Mexican luchador. She's from Mexico City, so I'm assuming they're trying to say since she probably has some Aztec blood in her, we're just gonna call her Fabi Apache, which makes it worse because last I checked, Aztecs didn't dress like that. But okay.
Apparently, her father was Grand Apache, so there's some history in her family with this shit. I don't know if that's a good thing because I don't know if he's Native American either.
No, he's a Mexican luchador, but he comes from the area where they used to do shit like that.
No excuses, racist. Fuck this guy.
I'm just, well, that's the thing. It's like, okay, I kind of get the father thing, but yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess she's doing family heritage thing.
Racist. That's why she's not the champ, because she's racist. Don't quote me on that, because she's gonna come like get me in a headlock or whatever. But yeah.
Oh, she has a sister, Mary Apache.
I'm done. Can we ask?
That's just the family. It's funny because their original family name is Gonzalez. Just use that. But okay. And then her mother. I need to see a picture of her mom though.
Creep.
No, because I want to see if her mom dressed like that too.
Creep. Whatever.
No, she did. Okay, never mind. No, I'm not being a creep. I just want to say, like, are y'all all doing the Indian thing?
The whole family was brought up racist. That's how it goes. Racism is taught.
It's funny because one of my favorite wrestlers growing up was Wahoo McDaniel, and now it's like, you know, I'm sure a lot of us like Tatanka.
I didn't. I thought that motherfucker was racist.
Well, you were too young to be around for the Tatanka.
I meant to see him when he came around every once in a while. I didn't see when he was hot.
Yeah, I mean, God, WWE was a bastion for racism back in the 80s.
Fucking. Yeah. But anyway.
Fabi Apache. All right.
See, I was trying to end us on a positive note with the Spider-Man thing, and you just had to drag racism to be the last thing. Because, you know, typical you. Can't let anything be nice.
I mean, I guess you can make the argument, is it racist if they adopt the culture?
The answer is yes. It's racist.
It's a good question. We're going to have to leave that for another.
Eventually, I will be playing Tomb Raider. I haven't bought it yet because I'm still coming off my Spider-Man high, but I haven't forgotten that it's there.
Are you going to get, speaking of wrestling, by the way, are you going to get, what's his name? Fire Pro Wrestling.
I wasn't intending to.
Okay. Because I think after I'm done with Spider-Man, I'm going to use this $15 off thing. It's $40. I'm going to go ahead and get it.
Maybe you'll give us a
shit out of
review.
Kenny Omega. Beat the shit out of Kenny Omega as much as I can.
If you come out with a good review, maybe you'll change my mind. Because I just watched your first like 2 hours in first impression thing or whatever of Spider-Man? Because
Yeah, it was 2 hours, but it really wasn't 2 hours.
I was like, oh, this game is so fucking good. I'm psyched.
That game.
I'm hyped.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't played it, it's probably because you don't love yourself. I'm just saying. I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just saying you're
seriously. The $400 you're gonna spend on rent should go to a PlayStation 4. Well, now you have to spend the whole $400, $300. Get a regular PlayStation 4. You don't have to get a Pro.
You could steal one.
Take another $60 and get Spider-Man.
Do you feel? I feel like you guys are good enough. You deserve to play Spider-Man. That's all I'm saying. You know?
Yeah.
I care enough about you guys to say what needs to be said.
Do right by yourself. Treat yourself. Live your best life and play Spider-Man.
We're living in the Trump era, goddammit. You need to do something positive in your lives, like play Spider-Man. There you go.
Exactly. But don't do the horrible things like watch Impact Wrestling, because this is not that good. It's not that good. And they brought LAX back. It's like, okay.
But do watch NXT and SmackDown. Mostly
Watch the Mae
Young Classic. That shit is.
No, if you don't watch anything, watch the Mae Young Classic.
Those women are tearing down the house every goddamn night they do it.
It is incredible.
You want to talk about female empowerment? The little boys in maybe the next generation who, like during my age, we looked up to like The Rock and Austin and stuff. They're going to be looking up to like a lot of female wrestlers, and it's going to be fucking awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Mercedes Martinez, she should be a hero of yours. Mia Yim.
She was an abuse survivor.
Yeah. Lacey Lane, new up and comer, doing the thing. What was the name of that chick last night who lost Tony Storm?
Oh, the fashionista there. I never seen her before, so I don't remember.
Yeah, she was good too.
I was shocked by that. She was very good.
Yeah, it's like people you don't even know. They come out, it's like, yo, who the fuck are you, and why are you so good? Zia Lee and Karen Q. God damn it, that match. Jeez. We still haven't seen Io yet. God damn.
Her name was Jenny. Jenny something. That's so goddamn good. So yeah, treat yourself to Spider-Man, NXT / SmackDown / Mae Young Classic. Pretty much everything but Raw.
Yeah, please stay away from Raw. For the love of God. That's
And if you don't have time to watch all of SmackDown, just watch the Becky Lynch parts, because oh my God.
Yeah.
That woman is the savior. And that will all be like collectively my suggestion for the week, I guess.
Yeah, I think we've given you guys enough stuff. Spider-Man, Mae Young Classic, NXT, SmackDown.
You can check out all
the
in.
Mauro Ranallo biopic. Yeah. Well, not biopic. Documentary.
Yeah. Bipolar Rock and Roller, which has a cool last name.
Yeah, it is.
I want to suggest All In, but I still haven't finished watching all of it. Not because it's that long. I just haven't seen the main event yet. But what I did see was pretty good. That match between Kenny Omega and Pentagon is awesome.
Yeah.
But there you go. You guys have enough homework. Go do it.
Exactly. Enjoy. All right. So thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And we will see. Well, I'm sure there's going to be plenty more political shenanigans to talk about. So I guess we will see you next time on The Reason Reborn. Any parting words, Troy?
Finish Spider-Man.
It shall be done. All right, y'all. I'll see you later. Peace.
Jesus.